I've always hated the summer transfer windows and generally transfer windows as a whole. Because of all of the rumors that tend to come out during this period, it's so difficult to know what's right and what's wrong. And given how big of a club Arsenal tends to be, even during our banter area, we tend to be linked to almost every players you can like think of, this player, that player, this player, that player. We've already seen similar things going on this on transfer window already, where it's so hard to know how genuine this transfer window is. Like if you are in any subreddit or Discord, you just get to see the transfer windows, and nowadays we don't even get to tier them anymore. It's like previously we used to have like tier ones where we knew that these are like the more legit transfer rumors. But nowadays, anybody can just post something on Twitter and it's like it becomes a transfer rumor of his own without knowing how genuine it is. And it tends to like do my head in. I remember back in 2014 when we got Sanchez, and I must have been like the last person to know about this deal because back then I used to do this where I stay offline for like a couple of days and I come back online and I see what's happening. I can't even remember what I was fully doing in 2014 summer when we got Sanchez. I just remember that I came back on Twitter like a day or two later and I saw the news and I'm like, we signed Sanchez. That was how crazy that period was. And just the fact of not having the transfer drag for so long, or at least not pay full attention to the transfer rumors and just seeing the deal get done finally was very big to me then, because I was like, we didn't lean to players like Di Maria, Benzema, Higuain. Like, we can't keep listing his name, the M Village rumors, like, I've just lost track of what the players we've got linked to. Like, I'm still waiting for the day where we do the signing of, what's that guy that used to play for Shakhtar? I can't even remember his name anymore. That went to PSG. I can't remember his name. Well, I'm going to post a picture during the editing part of it. We've been linked with so many players and we never get to know what is genuine and what's not genuine. And given how short-term everything is these days, like every rumor tends to be treated as being genuine and not. But the one transfer so far that we can confirm from a national perspective is the fact that we've come to know that Trossard is going to be leaving us this summer. And this is a player that wasn't even our first choice when he came. This is a player that came to the team with rumors of him having baggages of disagreeing with coaches or being like a stubborn character within the dressing room. And we had all of these things prior to him joining us. And I'm just going to say it, for the value or for the amount you spend on Trossard, if he tends to like George, pound for pound in terms of money spent, Trossard has to be probably our best signing in the Emirate era and one of the best Premier League signing in recent times. This is a player we signed for about 25 million, where we could have spent close to 100 million on Modric. I know Chelsea spent about 62 guaranteed fee and had add-ons that could have taken the deal to about 89 million. But this was who we could have gotten. And we just decided to go with Trossard. We could have paid close to 100 million for a player who barely made 50 appearances for Shakhtar Donetsk before moving to Chelsea. And we got Trossard instead. We got a player that throughout his stay with us contributed close to about 72 goals, like 72 GAs if you think like wank his goals and assists within this period of time. Last season where we won the league, he contributed top GAs within the league, and across this season gave us 19 goals in this season where we went to do what we've not done for about 2 decades. This is a player that I've really, really liked and appreciated. I mean, we can keep going on about how close Trossard things should be. Yes, he's going to have this period where you would see him missing for about 5, 7, 8 games, and you start to wonder, is this player better coming off the bench or is it better starting? Then you get those 5, 6 games where Trossard just comes in and is like, where has this player been? And we can also see something similar with regards to the World Cup, though his form did pick up towards the end of the season, and I think he has just carried that form all the way to Bay of John and is kind of performing and showing the quality of a player he is, which as an Arsenal fan, we kind of know. But most people or most fans that just don't want to see the World Cup will kind of have a different appreciation for how talented the player Trossard is. Yes, it makes sense to get a fee for a player that is 31 and is going to be 32 at the end of the year. I think his birthday is in December, who has 1 year contract left. It makes sense to get some, value for Trossard. So while I don't really like the deal because I feel like we are losing one of our key players. Yes, he's not Gabriel, he's not White, he's not Wire, he's not one of these untouchables in the team. But for players that we look to contribute stuff when they come into the game, Trossard is right there with anybody, and I'm really, really going to miss Trossard leaving the club. Like, he's one of our most technical players. He's one of our better finishers on the squad. It does a lot to the team that don't able to get recorded on the stats. Like, we don't get to see them on the start because there are certain things that the start do not fully capture. We've seen him play different positions when needed. He's just been there, and even periods where you get the bumblings of maybe him being frustrated for not playing much, it didn't really spill to his performance on the pitch because whenever you need Trossard, even when he's not playing fully well, you can bank on him to come in to give us something. At the very least, to give us some technical abilities on the ball, some ball security that we are going to be missing. And my worry with this would go back to the fact that when we've lost certain technical players, like when we lost Shaka, we went a different route in replacing him. When we lost Sichenko, players that brought certain technical ability to the team, we went a different route in replacing these players. Yes, we've tried to bridge the gap in what we do, but the fact still remain. Every transfer since 2023 summer has kind of represented a move away from the technical abilities or the technical players we came to like and we've come to appreciate a lot. We've gone to more physical players. And at the end of the day, there's no denying to the fact that we got something out of it. We won the league based on the squad we had, the team we had. And yes, we've lost some technical abilities. The players we've brought in have all contributed one way or the other. But it's still a worry because I feel like the technical level of our team is low at the moment. And losing someone like Trossard, I'm not fully replacing the security it brings to the team is going to affect us at one point going into the season, next season. Hopefully this does not happen. Hopefully we get like a decent or a better replacement. But we might be getting a better player because we've been linked to better players. But I can't really say for sure how those players are going to raise our technical ability, which is something I've been worried about us like losing and going further away from. One of the players that has been heavily linked to replacing Trossard has been Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa. Everybody likes this player, except when you go to the start. It's like, this is the player where, because we don't get to watch a lot of Aston Villa games, we see a couple of highlights or we see him perform when he plays against us and we're like, yes, there's a player here. But if you look at his numbers, if you look at his start, his underlying numbers, I'm not sure how that really translates into a team like Arsenal. And every time we get to have this argument regarding Rodgers, you hear people say, boy, his output is very high. He's a player that you can rely on to contribute certain amount of goals, contribute certain amount of assists. And that just makes sense because if you look at his last 2 seasons in Aston Villa where he played as a mainstay in the squad, he contributed about 34 goals and assists across those seasons. Those are goals and assists that we could do as a team. But we also need to put into consideration the fact that he played in a different system that did not get to face some of the issues we face. If you followed us now from, say, the 2022 season, you would have come to know that one of the biggest problems Arsenal faces when we play is the fact that most teams tend to play us in low blocks and mid block, which have been something we really struggled to break down And it got worse last season where we started to struggle with the high press, where teams press us, and it's like we just tend to bypass our midfield. We tend to not have the ball security to play through the space. We tend to go long, and for a lot of games last season, it felt like we just ignored the midfield and we just went long, and we kind of just settled with that, and we relied on our defense to carry us through the season. Again, we won the league. It worked, but there's a different world where we didn't get to win the league the last season, and everyone here is complaining about how we played. We didn't really play well. We didn't really play as well as we as Arsenal fans come to see or as come to expect from the team. But again, we won the league, and we can say that our approach did work. But going back to the fact that a lot of my concern in using Trossard has been the fact that we are not going to replace his technical ability. Bringing in a Rogers who isn't even a winger per se. Of course, just last season only, he played about 83% of his time in midfield. Either as a left 8 or as like a full 10. He barely played on the wing. And this is who we're expecting to come to replace Trossard based on the rumors. I don't really know how this is going to work, and I'm not really looking forward to it. I don't want the Rogers if you ask me, because I can't make an argument for him being an elite winger. I also cannot make an argument for him being an elite number 8 or number 10. So how does he come in now to solve the problems that we face, which are playing across playing against low blocks, playing against mid block, playing against high presses, where we need more technical players who are comfortable in tight spaces, which is not necessarily Trossard game. Yes, again, it would give you the output, but the output is also based on the fact that they play a different system in Aston Villa than we play in Villa. We know that we allow these midfielders to take some form of liberties, which will be gassy the shots. It allows midfielders to take more shots. It allows them to take more attempts, which again, we can say contributes to a lot of the goals and assists that Rogers got last season. There was even a point last season where he complained about the fact that he hates stats, because it feels like stats kind of paints a different picture of who he is. I think the particular stat he had an issue with was with the expected goals, where it's like he's saying that he scores a lot of goals, but for some reason his expected goals does not reflect his output. I don't really know what issue he had with that particular stat, because to me that is a good thing, or that is a good problem to have, where you kind of overperform the goals you're expected to get. But again, would he be able to do that in Arsenal? We've seen players like Eze come in, where the argument for Eze signing back then was the fact that he was a moment player. He's the player that is going to contribute when you expect him, not when you least expect him to. He's a player that will put something out of nothing. We've seen this. You saw the goals against Newcastle, against Palace, against Leverkusen. We saw him kill Tottenham home and away, where he just was in the right moment to score some goals and just give the team what we needed. But if you look at his performance as a whole, take away those goals, which is a crazy thing to say, but just follow me in this line of thinking. Take away those goals. How much would you say Eze influenced how we played, how we progressed the ball through the midfield? In my opinion, he didn't really do as much as I expected him to do. Again, most of the argument then was, he could carry the ball, it would help in transition. The same thing we are saying about Rodgers now, we said about Eze. In my opinion, they are very similar players, though Rodgers is more explosive and takes more risks than Eze. But again, Eze took more shots. Eze took more risks when he was in Crystal Palace. Nani Madueke took more shots when he was in Chelsea. Gyökeres took more shots when he was in Sporting before joining us. These players came under short count wages because because at the end of the day, we are still a ball possession team. We like to dominate the team. We like to play amongst ourselves. which is how we've come to be able to manage these low and mid blocks that we tend to face. If you're bringing a Rodgers in, how does he help solve this problem? No one has been able to fully explain this to me, and that has been my biggest worry, where it's just so easy for everybody to point to his assists, his goals, which are very genuine things to point to, which are things we need. But I'm like, if you're not scoring these goals, what do you offer us? I don't want moment players, particularly in the midfield, because I still don't see Rodgers as a pure winger. I still see him as someone that would come to play in the midfield. And I want players who would not be scared of the ball. I want players who would come to take the ball from the six and then help progress the ball forward. These are things that Rodgers really do struggle with. But if we're just talking based on Rodgers' comparison with Trossard, if we were to judge how this player directly replaces, if we were to judge how Rodgers directly replaces Trossard, these are just some numbers for you to consider. For non-penalty expected goals, Rodgers he performed worse than Trossard last season. For open shots, open play shots, he had more, which makes sense given he's a player that likes to take a lot of shots, and that is also the system that Villa played. He has all of those green lights to take as much shot as he wants to. He's not really going to get those when playing for us. If you look at deep touches within 25 yards close to the opponent on box, his touches are lower than Trossard. Again, pointing to this fact that in those tight spaces, he's going to have less touches. And I'm doing this thing where it feels like I'm penalizing Rodgers based on how he performed, and I'm not taking into consideration how he's going to do when it comes to Arsenal squad. But in my head, I know fully well that Trossard is a better technical player than Rodgers, and this translates into his numbers. If you look at things like pass efficiency, he's worse off when compared to Trossard. If you look at things like progressive passes, they are basically on par with each other. If you look at things like his open play, expected assists, he performed worse than Trossard. If you look at his dribbles, performed slightly better than Trossard. But things like progressive carries, which is one of the arguments we tend to make for Rodgers, it doesn't do that as much as Trossard does. And this is for a Villa team that, for the few games I saw of them, they tend to have more space to run into compared to Arsenal. And even with those spaces, he couldn't really do much better than Trossard, who played in a team that was not allowed those spaces to run through. And if you look at his turnover, he loses the ball way more than Trossard does. And these are things that are going to become more evident when we get to spend about 110, 130 on this player, and we see him on a week-to-week basis struggle to do things that a player we got for 25 million 3 seasons ago was able to comfortably do. Yes, Rodgers is going to find his own way to influence the game, but if you're just comparing directly with Trossard, there's still an argument to say for how we play. I'm not necessarily saying Trossard is a better player, but for how we play, he's going to have to do much more to replace what we are losing from Trossard. And if you go to the defensive numbers, Trossard plays in like defensive action. Trossard is better. Goal probability are there. Trossard does better. Trossard has just been able to make something for himself within this Arsenal team. He has made a name for himself. He has made a role. He has carved. We've come to know what he expects. Is Rodgers going to be able to do this? In my opinion, he wouldn't be able to do it as much as Trossard did, because they're just two different players. In my opinion, we already have someone that can do most of what Rodgers is supposed to do for us in AZ. And I'm just going to be honest, I was the most impressed by how AZ played. Again, without AZ, we probably don't win the league last season, given how vital some of his contributions were. But if we were to judge his season as a whole, it wasn't as impressive as we expected him to be. And that was a player we got for 60 million thereabout. And this is a player we're going to be getting for almost double of that. Like, I don't want Rodgers. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Hey, maybe we sign him on 2 months into the season. I'm here eating humble pie. I would do that. I would want to do that if we go on to sign a player that most people see a lot of talent in and it comes to perform. I'll be the first to put my hands on and say, yes, I was wrong about that. But another player we've also looked at as being Bakula. Again, I wasn't fully bought into Bakula as a whole because of similar concerns. Yes, his numbers are great. Yes, he plays for PSG. Even though he doesn't start, which he's going to be able to do given the players he has ahead of him. I still feel that most of the times we get to see Bakula play, particularly in those big Champions League games, tends to be where when the defense is stressed, when he has spaces to want to. We saw it in the final where he came, and at that point in time, it felt like the game was just a bit spread apart. He had more spaces to perform, and even then, he could have killed us off if he had better finishes. And he really couldn't just. He didn't play well in that game. He impacted the game, but he didn't really play well. And this is going to be similar concerns because if you take away a player from the fact that he plays for a lower league, he plays in a team that has all of these technical players around him to contribute to him. If you take that away and put him into a team where it's week in, week out, you're going to face tough opposition. Week in, week out, you're going to play with little to no space. Week in, week out, you're going to be expected to create something by yourself and not others create for you. How does this translate? And I'm fully aware that the left wing market is very poor. And these are like some of the best options we have. But if I'm going to pick between Bakula and Rodgers, I would rather go with Bakula. I don't know if it's the bias of him coming from PSG, but I do feel like he has a skill set that we do need. He brings in pace, he brings in dribbling ability that we really do lack. Initially, I was thinking maybe we sell Martinelli, we bring in Bakula, we keep in Trossard, and we find a way to just maintain what we had last season. But now that Trossard is gone and we're replacing him with Bakula, who shares similar traits to Martinelli, although at this point in time, he's arguably the better player. What happens when we need the more crafty, more technical players to break down these defenses, this mid block and stuff? What happens there? Because I do feel like he will struggle in those situations. But again, if you are having one of each, I would rather go with a Bakula and just pray and hope that this player goes on to reach the heights that people thought he was going to reach when he was at Lyon. And I'm fully aware of the fact that playing for PSG can, as much as it gives you some advantage, it also kind of takes away from your game. But we've also seen us linked to players like Tizolis from Club Brugge in the Belgium League. This is a player whose game looks more like Trossard game, for the lack of a better word. Yes, he also have those output. I think last season he had about 40 GA or so. That's just crazy, regardless of the league you're playing in. And prior to that, he had about, in the 2014-2015 season, he had about 16 goals, 9 assists. Yes, it's in the Belgium Pro League, but these are crazy numbers. And keep in mind, at that age, Trossard was still in Belgium doing those things before he came to the Premier League and before he came to us. So, yes, those numbers are not going to be the same when he joins us, but I do feel like it brings something similar. And for the price being quoted for him, I don't want to say I'm more comfortable going for that option. But the only reason I'll be comfortable going for it is if we still end up getting a Bakula, because I would not want Tizolis to be our marquee or to be our main signing on the wing to replace Trossard. It will feel like we've taken a step backwards, regardless of how much talent this player has. Again, this is some bold points. Raise my hand up to say, I do not watch Pro League. I've seen him a couple of times in Champions League. I saw him against us, but he didn't really stand out as a player to give us issues. And because we had not been rumored to going for him, I didn't really look Like, I didn't really watch his game performance, and I'm the last person that's going to go to YouTube to watch those YouTube clips because those can make any player better. I remember going to watch Nicolas Pepe, I like prior to signing, and based on how he went, I was like, I would never do this myself again. But these are the options we had on the listing to replace Trossard, the player that I've just really come to like and appreciate. And I hope we get one of them, preferably Bakula and maybe Tizolis. But what would that then mean to the left wing? It would be that we have 3 players in the same position. Where would the game time come? I know we play a lot of games. Surely we're going to get game times and injuries are going to happen. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen to our key player, but we kind of know by the 23-24 season, we've kind of really struggled with the injuries. But I do feel like Arteta and the club knows most of these. They work with these players, they work with these stars on a day-to-day basis. We are just fans. We can only express what we see. But I do feel if we fail to address that position, given what we are going to be using, with Trossard leaving, it might come back to authors. But another player that is not a left winger that we've also been rumored to, who kind of looking forward to has been Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle. I don't know how that deal is going to be possible given all the players that Newcastle seem to be losing. Gordon is gone. Tonali is gone. Would they still want to use a player like Guimaraes? And would Guimaraes even want to go back to Newcastle looking at the team and seeing how key players Isaac went last season, how 2 key players have gone this season? Like, what would be there for him to play with? And this is the 29-year-old player who would want to win the bigger things, I assume. So that transfer, I hope we do get. And I hope we get him for a fair fee, which in my opinion would be about 65 to 70 million. And given the crazy amounts we've seen Fernandes and Tonali go for, though we kind of need to know that Tottenham are a bit desperate to get some of these players, given how poor their seasons were last year and the prior season. It makes sense for them to spend this money. It would be a bargain, in my opinion, to get one of the better midfielders in the league for that price, regardless of age. You spend 70, 75 million on him. You're going to have him for another 2-3 years. And he's going to perform because he's ready to come into the team to perform. And given how much Wise and Zubimendi played last season, we do need someone that we can trust to come into the team and not have the level drop that much. Because yes, we know Lewis Kelly came into the squad for the last 5-6 games of last season and he did very well. But I feel like we kind of hype his performance because of how poorly Zubimendi had been playing prior to Lewis Kelly coming into the squad. So it felt like anything but Zubimendi was going to be an upgrade. And I do feel like this is the kind of thinking Arteta and Peter are probably thinking about. We need a player that can come into the squad and not reduce or drop the level of that midfield. And if anyone is going to say that our midfield is good or did not struggle last season, I would say you're a liar. Yes, again, we won the league. Yes, we have arguably the second or the best midfielder in the league. But as a unit, our midfield wasn't good last season. And I do feel like that went ahead to influence how poorly our attack played. Because if you struggle to consistently progress the ball from your defense to the midfield to the attack, you're going to have the issues where the attackers do not get the ball as much as they would like, or do not get the ball in positions where you expect them to do stuff. Most of last season, we were seeing players like Saka get the ball further away from the pitch, which, given his injury concern and given how he seems to have lost a bit of a step, ideally you would want to see him closer to the box. But then again, you need people to be able to find him in those pockets closer to the box, which is where I feel Guimaraes can come in and perform. He is a very complete player. If we do sign him, he's going to be our most complete midfielder, given that he can do a bit of everything at a very high level. That is kind of my summer transfer wish for someone that said he doesn't like transfer windows. If I was to make one wish, it's to be to get Guimaraes. Yes, I wanted Brady, but given the amount being quoted by his club and given the fact that they are also saying they would like him to be loaned back to them for like another year, and also given his age, yes, he's probably one of the most talented player in the midfield at that age, and he would go on, in my opinion, to become a very key player. I just don't see the world where we spend the amount of money and we don't get to have him play for us for a year. And I also don't know how he's going to be able to translate into the Premier League at his age. In an ideal world, I would get the two of them, but that would be like an overkill. So if you were to pick one, my head wants Guimaraes, my heart wants Brady, because I can see the ceiling. That player is so good and is so tidy. But regardless of who we end up getting, I feel like this window is vital for us. Maybe I'm in the minority here. I don't think our squad has a big of a gap when compared to the second best team in the league based on last season, which should be City. Yes, they've lost their manager. Same thing to Liverpool. A new manager is coming in. Those would be our two direct rivals, and it feels like they are in a bit of a transition. In a way, I also do feel like we are in a bit of a transition because we need to change some things, particularly in attack and also in midfield. And I do feel like if we miss the boat here, other teams can do good business and close the gap between us. And I am very worried, which is why I was so glad we won the league last season, because I know going forward, it's probably going to get more difficult. Gone are those days where we get Liverpool and City winning the league with about 190-something points. It's not going to happen again. We can see we won the league with 85 points. Liverpool per season won with about 83 points. So the points are like dropping, and it's going to be about that range. And the main reason we won the league last season was the squad, the team, the depth we had. I feel like if we can just increase our ceiling again, while also increasing our floors, we would go on to do what we've not done in the Premier League era, which would be to win them back-to-back. And I feel like that should be the target going into next season.